Hello children, today we will start with the poem on another's sorrow. So let's talk about the poet first children. Now the poet is William Blake was a poet during the Romantic era in England. Now he comprised a plethora of poems often based on the concept of religion as well as on the theory of contrary states of the human soul. Now, in addition to being a poet, Blake was also an artist and he created watercolor engravings to accompany each poem he wrote. Now, let's understand the rhyme scheme of the poem. On Another's Sorrow by William Blake is a 9 stanza poem that is separated into sets of 4 lines or quatrains. Okay. Now, each of these stanzas follows a consistent rhyme scheme. It conforms to the pattern of AA, BB, CC, DD and so on. Okay, since it is of 9 stanzas. Now, changing end rhymes as Blake saw fit, and the poem was first published in Blake's Songs of Innocence. Now, let's understand the theme. The most important theme of this piece is God's love and empathy. It is seen throughout the lines, but most prevalently in and after stanza 4. Okay, this you will come to know when we read the poem. Now, Blake's speaker is very interested in the plan that God has for the world and whether or not he is listening to the smallest creatures like the wren. By the time Blake gets to the 7th stanza, he is espousing God's enduring love without the pretext of a question. Okay, now let's understand the summary. Now, On Another's Sorrow by William Blake describes the love God has for the world and how it has inspired the speaker to act similarly. The poem begins with the speaker asking his listeners, that means readers, if there is any way he could not empathize with someone who is suffering. Now, the clear answer to this question is no. A reader should infer immediately that the questions are rhetorical in nature and Blake's speaker is simply trying to make a point how integral pity is to his treatment of those grieving. Okay, so in the second half, he turns to God and how he interacts with the world. He is able to become all those who suffer and sit by those who are in the depths of despair, no matter who they are. Okay, his care reaches down to the smallest beings. The poem concludes with the speaker telling the reader it should be impossible for one to be sad with all these instances of God's joy. Okay, so now let's read stanza 1. Can I see another's woe and not to be in sorrow too? Can I see another's grief and not seek for kind relief? Now, what do you understand? Let's go through. So, in the first stanza of this piece, as well as the second, Blake presents the reader with 2 questions. He is wondering in these first lines if he is able to see another's woe and then not experience those same emotions. It is impossible for him, someone who believes deeply in God's love and a common empathy amongst humankind, to not feel as a sufferer does. Okay, the same sentiment is presented in second question. He asks the reader if it would be possible for him to not seek for kind relief when he sees that someone is in pain. Will you not feel that pain? Okay, so the answer to this question is obviously no, because we as a human being, we feel pain of others. Okay, there is no way for him to allow suffering to go on. Okay, especially if he can find a balm for it. Now, let's see stanza 2. Can I see a falling tear and not feel my sorrow's share? Can a father see his child weep nor be with sorrow filled? So in the next set of 4 lines, the same emotions come up again, which was in stanza 1. The speaker is expressing his ability to empathize with the world through 2 different examples. Now first, he presents a falling tear without context. Now it doesn't matter who is crying. It is impossible for him to not feel the same sorrow. Now, and the second line gives a little more detail. He is like a father who is unable to prevent his own tears when he sees his child weep. Okay, when he sees his child cry. Now, stanza 3. Can a mother sit and hear an infant groan, an infant fear? No, no, never can it be. Never, never can it be. So let's see what the next stanza says. The first 2 lines of this stanza follow the same form as the 8 which came before them. Okay, now Blake's speaker relates his own ability to contain his emotions to a mother who has to groan when he sees an infant in fear. Even the idea of not crying for the suffering masses of the world is unthinkable to the speaker. He uses the phrase, never can it be. And you will notice twice in these lines in order to emphasize how strongly he feels about it. Okay. So now let's see the next one. And can he who smiles on all hear the rain with sorrows small? Hear the small birds' grief and care. Hear the woes that infants bear. Now, it is the first stanza that God and his love for the world enter into the poem. Now, the first line begins with and as if everything which came before it was only one half of a sentence. So, the next lines are in an addition. Rather than referring to himself, he is speaking on God. Okay, there is an inescapable comparison being made here between the speaker and God. He sees himself as having the same kind of love that God does for all his creation. For God, all of us are one. Everybody is equal. Okay, no discrimination. So the love is seen through the repeated structure and built up to the repeated 2 lines. Never can it be, which appear again in stanza number 6. The speaker lists out all the creatures and situations God cares about in the form of an extended question. Now he appears to wonder over God's ability to hear and see grief. The emotion presents itself in the smallest of creatures, infants and rains. But of course, the answer is yes. God can hear, see and empathize with everything and everyone. Now let's move to next stanza. And not sit beside the next, pouring pity in their breast. And not sit the cradle near, weeping tear and on infant's tear. So just as the speaker is unable to sit beside someone suffering and not comfort them, so too is God. He is unable to sit the cradle near and do not care for an infant who is weeping. God's pity comes to all those who suffer. Now stanza 6. And not sit both night and day, wiping all our tears away. Oh no, never can it be. Never, never can it be. Okay. So the speaker emphasizes God's boundaryless love in the 6th stanza by stating that he loves everyone night and day. Okay. Wiping all our tears away. And there are never any moments where everything just stated in the previous 2 stanzas does not happen. His care is omnipresent and inexhaustible. Now let's move to stanza 7. He doth give his joy to all. He becomes an infant small. He becomes a man of woe. He doth feel the sorrow too. So in the 7th stanza, the speaker stops questioning. He now turns to a number of statements explaining how God interacts with the world. He is able to become those who suffer. This means that his understanding of pain is so deep, he doth feel the sorrow too, and he becomes a man of woe. Now his joy is available to all those who want it, and even to those who don't. Means God is always with us, with the sufferers who suffer. Okay, so God is always there to help. He is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He can see everybody's, he can feel everybody's pain. He can see everybody's suffer. Everything. Now stanza 8. Think not thou canst sigh a sigh, and thy maker is not by. Think not thou canst weep a tear, and thy maker is not here. So in the 8th stanza, the speaker turns to the reader and addresses them directly. He says that they are unable to sigh a sigh without thy maker by. Now one should never feel deep despair about anything, at least not for long. Okay, so the knowledge that God is always there should soothe any sufferer. So once we have a trust, once we have a belief that God is there, we will be able to overcome any problem, any suffer, any pain. Now let's see stanza number 9. Oh, he gives to us his joy, that our grief he may destroy. Till our grief is fled on gone, he doth sit by us and mourn. The 9th stanza wraps up everything Blake's speaker has described so passionately in the previous quatrains. Now he states that God gives humankind joy so that it might take the grief away, and this is his way of destroying pain. The relief might not come immediately, though some grief is stronger than others in the meantime. He will sit and with humankind and mourn just as they do. Okay. So now children, hope all of you have understood the lesson. So with this, let's wrap up and read the poem carefully so that you can understand. So thank you children. Have a great day.